Welcome to episode 18 of the Personal Transformation Experience podcast. We're the Brands, Maureen and David, and we're a committed couple engaging in effective and challenging conversations. We discuss and model actual behavior, lifestyle, and communication strategies that have helped us improve as people, parents, and partners, and we share these with you with the goal of making the world a better place one relationship at a time. What you're about to see is real people working real stuff out in real time. So thank you for joining us today as we talk about what it takes to move from a triggered response to a conscious response and how to recognize these triggers and how to effectively change our response to them as well. And one of the first things that we felt we wanted to go down talking about was awareness, right? What is the importance of awareness and consciousness?
Yeah, we want to start with awareness, yeah. So, by the way, I'm Maureen. He's David, just so you're aware.
In case that needed to be clear, thank you.
A little awareness. So awareness. So I think the first thing to think about when you're thinking about a triggered response or somebody pushing your buttons is how to be aware of it happening and that you're having a response to it that you don't desire. I had a good friend of mine recently asked me this very question, how do I change the way I respond from the inside to, and not be triggered by outside events, and she gave me a few examples of what was going on. And it really made me think like that is probably one of the most challenging things that we can do because we typically are not wholly focused on what's happening with our emotions and inside our bodies when we're engaged in perhaps an argument or even something exciting happening where, we're so overwhelmed or engrossed with the event that we're not thinking about how it's affecting our bodies or our emotions in the moment.
Oh, yeah. I can certainly attest to many times feeling like my emotional train has left the station.
Right.
And there's no brakes and the thing's going 90 miles an hour and it's very hard to stop.
You can't stop. Yeah. It's like when I have a panic attack. I knew it was happening. I knew it was going to come. And I tried not to perseverate on it, but it's very hard. Then you become hyper aware of what's happening inside you, right? But you walk into a circumstance and, either that you may not respond to it well, or you're not aware and it just hits you out of nowhere. So yeah, once that emotional freight train leaves the station, it's very hard to stop it.
So what we wanted to walk everybody through is the different steps within related to awareness.
Right.
Awareness of what the external stimulus is, right? The actual trigger, our physical reactions to those triggers, and the emotions that we're feeling around these triggers. Right. So I think the first one you were kind of alluding to there, that external stimuli, external event, can be a person, could be that person that cut you off in traffic. It could be that cashier at Target that was snarky with you, right? That's the way you felt. That's the way you received them. It could be that you didn't get any mail that day and maybe you're upset. You think the mailman missed your house, right? So it could be any of these things. So first of all, I think is knowing what is happening.
But we're really talking about the sense of awareness for when you're in an argument with somebody.
Potentially, right?
Potentially in an argument or having an intense conversation, or you're just talking to your partner, wife, husband, whatever, and they say something triggering to you. And you suddenly start to feel like your throat is starting to close. You feel the tears burning behind your eyes. You feel like maybe your lip is starting to quiver. You don't want to cry in this moment. You don't want to feel vulnerable. You don't feel safe being vulnerable, right? Like that. And so how do you get aware ahead of that? So for me, like I think in terms of like behavior analysis, right? So because that's where it's the world I live in with the children and and you had mentioned before ABC data. So antecedent behavior and consequence. And so antecedent is something that happens immediately before the event. So if you can catch yourself before you start feeling the throat closing, like the lump in your throat, the burning behind your eyes and your chin quivering, Because at that point, you're going to cry. I mean, it's very hard to pull back from that point. I know I've been there. And once you're that upset and you feel like the tears are coming and this person is still talking, it's unless you walk away, it's very hard. Even when you walk away, you're going to let it go. You're going to start to cry. So, or having a panic attack or getting angry, right? Sometimes people cry, they get hurt. Some people get angry and grit their teeth and start elevating their voice, right? Or making a fist. And so to get that sense of awareness, a few things I was thinking about, and I actually got this from Eckhart Tolle's book, The Power of Now, which has made me think about it when you said it before.
Oh, yeah.
He says, to gain a sense of practicing awareness. So everyday activities, you get up, you walk downstairs, you feel like if you're in bare feet, feel the coldness of the floor beneath your feet and just be in that moment and recognize that that's what you're feeling. The smell of the coffee, the taste of the coffee, how it feels going down your throat. You're taking a shower, how the water feels, the sound of the water. Close your eyes and use all your senses and just be in that moment. Feel the tile underneath your feet. Feel the water, how it feels, the temperature of the water, how it feels running through your hair, how it sounds, all these things. And just if you practice these little moments of awareness throughout your day, when you're in an intense conversation and when it matters, you will find yourself seeking inward to think about where you are in your body that you're feeling a certain thing before you elevate your voice, before you start to cry, before the lump forms in your throat. You're like, okay, I'm feeling something. I'm feeling some kind of way. Or as soon as this person says something that a trigger word, I feel upset. I feel a tightness in my chest. I feel like something's happening, right? And so you can get these really subtle, because most of us, it's so hard. When you're engaged in a conversation, you're listening to that person, you're wholly focused on processing what they're saying, and to then go into your body and recognize something emotional is happening, and you're going to start to have a behavior like crying or like anger or maybe, throwing something. I mean, you want to try to get ahead of it. And this way you're not being run down by that freight train, that emotional freight train that doesn't get out of the chute. You can stop it before it, put on the brakes. So, I was thinking, when this does happen, you can say to the person, I am feeling however you're feeling about what you just said, right? And then from there, because you're taking accountability, it's about you're saying, I'm feeling this way about something you just said. You're not saying you're making me feel a certain way, because then that person's going to get defensive, right? So you want to take acceptance for what you're feeling. So instead of getting defensive or getting somebody else defensive, you find acceptance of what you're feeling inside of you and say, I'm feeling this, accept that you're feeling it and say it.
Yeah, so when we were talking about awareness, and I think I may have said there was 4 steps we're going to walk people through. The first thing is being aware of what's happening outside you, right?
Right.
What is going on? What is that external trigger? Being aware of the physical reaction, like you said, your jaw is tight.
Yeah.
You're getting a headache, ringing in your ears, whatever it is, and then being aware of the feeling, right, that is coming up, right, which is part of, and you have to validate those feelings also. Am I angry? Am I sad? And it's not always negative. Sometimes you might be happy. You could have tears of joy, right?
Right. I'm excited. Yeah.
And then being aware of how you're responding, and which is kind of what we're getting into now. And I think it's important that we share that we believe, as many do, that you can choose how you respond.
Absolutely.
It's a practice, not easy.
Right.
I don't always do it. But when you realize what's going on and you have that awareness of what's happening, how your body's reacting, what you're feeling, what the emotion is that you're feeling, it becomes easier to choose a response.
Yes, because your reasonable part of your brain is still at work. Right. Once that freight train leaves the station, your amygdala takes over. Your emotional. It's very hard to pull back and get your other part of your brains to work.
Yeah,
right?
That's a good way of putting it, right? Because this primitive brain is what we don't want to have that do is just run the show, that fight or flight.
Yes.
I'm just going to take off. I'm going to fight. I'm going to argue with somebody, right?
This is how I feel. How else am I supposed to feel? Well, there's lots of ways, I'm not in dismissing the way someone feels about a certain thing, and you're absolutely allowed to feel that way. It's how else should I respond? It's not how else am I supposed to feel.
That's right.
I've heard that so many times. Like, I know, I have.
We're always entitled to feel
right.
what we want to feel, or
Someone
what we
I'm-
need to feel, rather.
Right.
Yeah.
Someone I'm very, very close to. I mean, look, we've all had so much trauma, as my family growing up. And they always say, how am I supposed to feel about this? And I'm like, you're supposed to be angry. It's how you choose to respond
Yeah. I almost don't know if I would say you're supposed to be angry. I said, if you feel angry, it's okay. Right? It's okay for you to feel however you feel about it, right?
Well, yeah, not supposed to be angry, but
if you feel,
I just use the words.
yeah, if you feel,
Yeah.
because I don't.
I mean, I validate things. You should
Yeah.
be angry if something happens and it's unjustified, and someone
It's
does
reasonable,
something.
right?
It's reasonable
Yeah.
to be angry. Absolutely,
Yeah.
you should be angry, and I validate that all the time, especially with my kids. And,
Well, if someone says they're angry, right? If they say they're not feeling angry about it, I'm not going to say, well, you should be angry,
well,
right?
something really horrible happens. You
Yeah.
should be sad or hard. You should have some kind of emotion about it. It's not. It's normal to do that. It's normal to have. We're humans. That's how we run. We run on emotion, right? So, yeah.
The should word is a trigger word for me because
I
when I
know.
met you, you always said never should on yourself.
Yeah.
And so I always feel like, should means that's a judgment, like you're telling the other person, anger is what you're supposed to feel in this moment. And they may not, right? Sometimes, especially when someone passes away,
Well,
right?
if
What
they
do they
say
talk
they're
about?
angry is
well, then
when
that's different. Then you're validating
I'm
them,
validating,
right? Like
right.
that's perfectly.
I use it to validate.
That makes sense.
Maybe I shouldn't.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, if you like, because sometimes people, and I know that has come up in the past. I don't think recently, as we've been kind of evolving, right? We're working on being the best version of ourselves. That's why we do this. But I think there was times long ago where you're like, why are you not upset? You should be upset over this,
Right.
And I'm like, I don't know. I'm not angry. I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, because I was angry, I expected you to have to be the same way.
And that's not always going to happen.
You wouldn't be with me with my emotions.
Right.
That was unfair.
Right. We can't.
Right.
And I don't think we even scripted that for today.
No.
But
We didn't script anything for today. We just took notes.
We can't expect the other person to feel what we're feeling either. Right?
No.
What do you mean you're not angry? I'm angry. You should be angry too, right?
Right, exactly.
That's another thing that is going to create.
Aren't you mad that this person did this to me? Like,
well, yeah, because we want that,
connection. We want somebody
else-
to sit with our misery, right? Misery loves company.
right. I want you to be angry with me. You
Right.
have to, right?
You're not loyal to me if you're not angry with me that this person did this.
Well, that's something in your family now. Now you're
Oh,
getting to
my
generational
gosh.
trauma stuff. That your family is still that way. I know in case they're listening, I don't want to be offensive to anybody, and judgmental, but I've heard people in your family and my family and other families. So I think it's pretty common,
right.
saying, "How could you not be angry at this person did this to me?" And they want you to share that, and then look at that person
against that
differently.
person, right.
And I think a lot of families do that. I think when I was younger, in my 20s, my grandmother and my mother played me against
Well, it's like a
each
sense
other.
of loyalty, right? So you are supposed to be loyal to me.
Right.
And
So therefore you have to have the same feelings I do.
How do you talk to that person since they did that to me? Like, how do you do that?
So actually, in a way, that's not validating somebody's feelings, right? So if somebody's angry at someone for something that was said or done, and you don't share that anger, now they're not validating how you feel about it, right?
Right.
It's flipped around. So that's tricky too. I just
Right.
thought about that.
Well,
that
then,
that's,
but then they're so far down working off another part, like the part of them that gets
Yeah.
triggered by that stuff that,
and I think it's fair to say, and what we said at the onset of this podcast, we're trying to share strategies with people. So
yeah.
thinking about that, where you have a situation, you're talking to a family member, and they said, "How could you not be angry also at what they said or did?"
How do you even talk to that person?
And I think my
Right.
response might be, "I hear you, I believe you, right? That you were hurt by what was said,
Right.
and what
right.
was said to you, and not to me, right?
Right.
And it is your relationship with the person that needs to be managed, or if they're an adult, right? If they're my 7-year-old, different. We're
Right.
not talking about that. So
Exactly.
they're a grown adult and they're having a problem with somebody else. I might coach them how to respond to that, but it's not my job to feel angry for them and to go and do battle with the other person.
Right. Well,
and
you
get-
tell them this and
and
you
get
tell them
drawn
that.
into
Yeah,
in
I
a
got that a lot.
situation.
I'm not telling them anything. It's not my relationship.
So
Yeah, it's your problem, your relationship with them. I'm not getting involved. Like, they always want to suck you into the middle of
and
it.
that then going back to the title of this episode, right? Conscious response. So
Yes.
if we automatically say, don't worry about it, I'll talk to them for you.
Right.
And I'm like, you really made so-and-so mad, and I'm mad at you because of how you talk
Right,
to
and
them.
now I'm fighting with
now
them.
you have an unconscious response to
Yeah.
the situation. So
But I'm fighting with them. Like,
Right.
that's not
now
my
you
battle
got-
to fight.
Yeah, so that's a very interesting thing that we didn't even think about talking about, but
Yeah.
that happens quite often.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that one piece where you're entitled to feel your feelings. The other person's entitled to feel your feelings, and you're also entitled not to feel what the other person's feeling.
Right. Right.
And you
right.
shouldn't be shamed about it.
No, absolutely not. Yeah, I don't.
But people will try and do that.
Yes.
Well, how could you not feel the same thing I'm feeling?
Well, look at what I did, right? I mean, I was thinking
Right.
like that's how it's supposed to be.
They want to suck you into it.
Right.
Right.
That's how I grew up. Exactly.
So and then everybody's upset, right? So that's not helpful either, right? And then everybody's argumentative and upset and yelling at each other, and then you have, as we were talking about this dinner last night, all the family drama, right? But how does family drama happen? It's things like that where people keep sucking people into.
And it's generational,
Yeah.
right? If you did it before, you're going to do it again. Like,
Yeah.
It's just the way we roll, right? In the family,
right.
it's just how we roll.
It's really interesting.
Yeah.
But just backing up a little bit, we just want to make sure we kind of get a true north here about what we're talking about. So what we're solving for is making sure we're aware of what's happening around us. We're aware of what's happening within us, the physical reaction, the emotional reaction. So then we can, from a state of awareness, make a conscious response, like you said, reacting from this maybe place of calm and not emotion, right? And you're in control. So that what you said is, I heard you say, what you said has led me to feel a certain way, right?
I'm feeling blank about what you said.
Right.
I am feeling.
So you
feeling.
own it. You own the feeling.
You own the
You own
feeling.
the emotion. You're not putting
You're
it in a person.
You're accepting it, and you're owning it. Like, I am feeling a certain way, instead of saying you made me feel, because then you're making them defensive. But if you say I am feeling, you're accepting it. You're accepting your emotion, and you're saying, yes, I feel this way about what they just said.
So you're validating how you feel,
Yeah.
but you're also letting the person know what their impact was.
Right. So
because we own our impact too.
Yeah. So, right. So to answer the question, how do I change the way I respond from the inside to a trigger in my external environment, like what somebody said or what somebody did? And this is, coming from a place of trauma, right? So if you had some kind of trauma, something really bad happened, and things happen in your environment that you don't expect, and now you're having a panic attack and you can't function. That's a trauma response, obviously.
Yeah.
And if they're fully aware of it, yeah, like just what happened with the. That's why we use the example of the neighborhood and me getting off the exit where I was shot at.
I mean, yeah, there's lots of examples of that, right?
Yeah.
If you had a family pet and so you watched them get run over by a blue Dodge Challenger, right? And every time you see a blue Dodge
yes.
Challenger, you're going
triggered by
to
it. Mm-hmm.
have this feeling, right? Because
Right.
feelings from an event kind of live in the body.
Yeah.
Right? They become alive in the
They
body,
do.
right?
They become alive. They sit in somewhere in your body. So to do that, you want to start with the sense of awareness and practicing awareness, like I said, in small everyday things. First thing in the morning, I mean, you could forget as the day goes on, or you can remember. But if you can remember to practice those small awareness exercises.
Yeah, no, I think that was good what you walked us through, right?
Yeah.
The feeling of the floor in your feet, the
Yeah.
feeling of the taste of the
Because
coffee,
now
the
you make
heat
it
of
a
the coffee.
habit.
Yeah.
You make it a habit
awareness.
of that awareness going on and being in the moment. And then when something big happens, like you're in an argument or
Yeah.
you're having, a bad moment or somebody's triggering you, you'll go right back to it. Like your body, you'll automatically start thinking, "How am I feeling?"
Yeah,
right now?
I love that because
Yeah.
what you're setting yourself up for is a minute by minute practice, right?
Yeah.
Because if you say, "Okay, I'm only going to practice awareness in the heat of an argument with somebody," you won't be prepared for it.
No, you're not
Right?
gonna-
It's like
yeah.
you say, "Okay, well, I'm going to run. I used to run
you don't
track in high
plan
school."
arguments.
I'm not say I had to run track in
Yeah.
high school. Right. I'm not going to get up and just run that 2 mile event and never practice. Right. So
Right.
everything leads to that moment. I love
Yeah.
that. And
Yeah.
I don't know how many people, I don't know that I ever thought about that until recently, that
Yeah.
every little thing matters. Right. That
Yeah.
creating awareness all day from the moment you get up to the moment you go to sleep will then make it easier to be aware where it really, really counts.
Right. Well, what really triggered my memory of this whole Eckhart Tolle, not only you mentioning it, but what you said about the door. We had this whole thing about the door. We had like an argument about the door 2 minutes ago, but then it got through my thick skull what you were trying to say, right? So, and it's not even worth repeating. It's silly, but it is about the small things.
I can say it, right?
Yeah.
So, and I know I thought the screws were loose. I tightened the screws on this door handle for the patio door.
Right.
And then it was so tight that you couldn't move the lock mechanism, right? But so you went to the door to lock it.
Yes.
And you said the lock is broken.
Right.
So that's a judgment statement, right?
Right, but I said it based on, here's where the defensive piece comes in. I said the lock was broken because I made a logical assumption about the fact that the door has been giving us a problem. The lock is very, very tight. And I thought maybe one of the springs just finally popped and I couldn't move it. I didn't realize that you had tightened. I didn't have that information. So I jumped. But what you're saying is completely different. So here I am defending myself, which is what I did. And you did what?
I explained where I was coming from.
Yes.
So
It's not about the lock.
So the assumptions that we make and you made in the moment are based on past experiences, right? Your past experience with the door has not been positive.
Right.
It's broken before.
Right,
I've replaced
right.
the lock. So you're looking at this and saying, okay, all my past experiences led me to this point where I'm going to make the judgment about the door. And we do that with people. Past experience with people. Okay.
Yes.
I know that this person, usually when they talk to me, they're trying to insult me, right? So maybe they're trying to work on themselves and you gave them feedback that you don't want to be insulted anymore. And maybe they're actually trying to do something right. And somehow they inadvertently say something that offends you and you say they're still being the same way. But you've made a judgment about somebody that is different than the intent. But with the door, what is the experience? The experience is the lock's not working.
Right.
Right. The underlying reason was I over tightened the screws. So
Right.
It wasn't broken per se. That you could define that as broken, but it didn't need to be replaced. I needed to loosen the screws.
Right.
So sometimes we take an experience, we judge an experience
Right.
based on a past
And
experience.
I automatically thought, oh shit, we have to replace this damn
Right.
thing again. That's exactly what I thought. I'm like,
Right.
oh my God.
And this is the triggering event.
And then I got irritated
Right.
because I was like, fucking thing, like it keeps breaking. But I didn't have the information. But what was true is the lock wasn't working
Right.
properly. I assumed it was broken. So the point we're trying to make is I went on an assumption based on my past experience with this stupid door
Right.
lock, and you had tightened it, and I didn't have that information. So I jumped to judgment about the lock. So while that's a minute, silly thing, you also made a really good point with the lights. So I recently put these little lights across the mantle on the fireplace, and I realized that they were getting dimmer. And I'm like, see, now the lights are getting dimmer. I'm going to assume that we need more batteries. And then you said, well, maybe there's a dimming switch and it was hit and they're just dimmer because the dimming. And I'm like, you're absolutely right. So while the point of all of this is not to rush to judgment about something, step back
Right.
and think and just say, okay, this is happening. Like, so this is about things, mechanics in a home, but we're talking about people.
Right.
Right. So we want to transfer this to dealing with people. And so, like, let's say your partner says something hurtful to you. Maybe think, I wonder why I feel like that's hurtful for me, and where they're coming from that they're saying this to me. So you approach it with curiosity instead of judgment.
Right.
So
100%.
approaching
That's it.
the door with curiosity instead of judgment, being like, this is not working. I wonder why. And instead of being like, oh, it's broken. Oh, he's broken. He's fucked up, right? Why is he saying that to me?
Well,
Yeah.
right. I mean, just like if somebody was stumbling around the kitchen, are
Yeah.
you drunk again?
Right. Whoa, yeah.
Because you've been drunk before.
Right.
And no, I'm not, this is not a story about me. I'm just making this up.
Right.
No, maybe I took some medication that's making me a little lightheaded. Maybe I tripped on something on the floor.
Right.
But you've seen me stumble around drunk before, maybe, right? And so
Just for example, yeah.
you make an assumption, right? So, but I think you can provide many, many, many different examples of this in everyday life.
Yeah.
But if the practice is always one of a curiosity, but curiosity and awareness are really bundled together, I think.
Yeah.
Well,
you have to be aware first before you hit curiosity.
That's why you have to separate everything out,
Yeah.
because otherwise life is just ready, aim, fire.
Yeah.
Right? It's,
Exactly.
You do this and I react. And we went through this at work and we talked about the difference between reacting and responding. And what we're talking about here, responding comes from being aware.
Ready, aim, fire. I like it. That's pretty much how. That's reactive. That's pretty much how
you said this. Boom.
Right.
I'm gonna do this.
Right.
I'm gonna scream at you. I'm gonna punch you. I'm gonna
There's
throw
no
a chair.
space.
Whatever. So
Right.
you don't even know, and it's happening so fast.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. There's no space between the
So
event and
this
your
whole
response.
idea of slowing down to become aware, I'm like, okay, what is happening right now? Right. There are people arguing. Right? Maybe somebody's arguing and you're sitting in a chair at a Thanksgiving dinner and your family's arguing with each other. What is happening right now? What's physically happening to me? Right?
Yes.
Right now, my ears are ringing. I have a headache. I'm sweating. My hands are trembling.
I don't want to be here. Right.
Right? And then what's the feeling that I'm having right now?
Mm-hmm.
Right? I'm scared. I might be confused, right? Those are feelings. I might be angry. I might be frustrated. I might be sad, right? So knowing what's happening.
Anxious.
And then you can clearly respond and just say, I need you to stop, right? To the people who are arguing.
Stop yelling, lower your voices, or I'm going to leave.
You either need to leave,
Right.
right? Or I'm going to leave, right?
Right. Like, this is what's going to happen.
And if they keep going, then you just get up and leave, right?
Yeah.
That's your response.
Right. And you have a choice.
That's your response.
You don't have to
need
scream with them.
You don't have to scream with them. You don't have to jump in the middle of the argument, and then you don't have to say things like, why does this happen every time we go to Thanksgiving dinner, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have the response you can take in that moment, in that fictional moment, is you can leave.
Yeah, they all might be like making fun of you. Oh, there she goes again. Da, 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 da. Being too sensitive. When you hear the terms, you're too sensitive, or I wrote them down.
Oh, yeah. Those are invalidating.
You're overreacting. You're being dramatic. You shouldn't feel this way. Well,
Right.
You know what? That's not okay. That's a red flag for you to walk away. You're not in the right place. These people don't care about you. And that's cruel to say because you're not being oversensitive.
Right.
This is how you're responding. It's uncomfortable. And they're being, they're not, whatever's happening with them is making you uncomfortable, and you're valid. Your feelings are valid. And you need to get away from that situation or that person, or, let them know, like, that's not okay,
Right. So in as much as somebody's saying to you, how can you feel this way? Somebody also saying you should feel the same way I do, right? That's
Yes.
equally invalidating.
Yes. Right. Yeah. Your feelings are your feelings, not somebody else's.
Or lack thereof. If I
Right.
don't feel the same way as you about something.
Doesn't mean you don't care.
Right.
It just means that you're not triggered by it, and I am, because you have a different life
because
experience.
we all are going to have different triggers. The same event,
Yeah.
right? Me driving through that neighborhood is not going to trigger me the same way it triggered you.
Right. Right.
I didn't have that experience.
No. So when you're with your partner and they say something triggering, try to gain a sense of awareness of what's happening, and try to think about, listen to them with curiosity and not judgment. Something is happening for there to be a wedge in the communication.
Right. And being open to exploring that. And
Yeah.
I think the other thing that we want to make clear is you have a right to ask your partner, why is this so upsetting to you? Right?
Yes.
Why is what I said upsetting you? Right? Even if they don't know or
Right.
don't say, hey, what you're saying is upsetting me. You can see it, right? So you want to be perceptive. If you
Right.
see your partner is turning red or
Right.
crying, like, hey, I can see
This
that
is
you are
hap-
upset. You
right.
appear to be upset, right? Because
Right,
you don't
and
want to
not-
label them. You don't want to
right.
say you seem to be angry.
Right. I
Right.
can see something's happening to
Right.
you. You seem like you're upset, and if they validate that, then you can ask the question, why is this making you upset? And not
Right.
in like, why the fuck is this making you so
No, it's like
upset?
curiosity.
Be it
right.
with curiosity, because there's two ways you can ask that question.
You want to learn. I want to learn. That's
I want to learn.
understanding.
You could tell them that you love them or whatever it is, whatever relationship you have with them. Let them know that you're doing this because you care about them and you're not like trying to be an asshole. Like, you could say like, why are you feeling that way? Like, what's wrong with you? Or you could say, why, with curiosity and compassion in your voice, why? Why do you think this is making you upset? Because what I'm saying, I'm not trying to do that. That's not my goal. My goal is to communicate something to you.
And that's effective communication, right?
Yeah.
Trying to get to the point where we can open up with each other
Yeah.
and say, hey,
Tone is everything.
Or maybe when somebody asks you that question, like, well, do you know why this is so upsetting? I do, but I don't want to talk about it right now. And then finding another time, maybe in that moment is not the right time. But the other side of the coin is when you are with somebody, in a relationship where they're constantly triggered by everything you do or say, and then they say, I don't want to talk about it. And there's no good time to talk about it. And they're constantly saying, you should have known that would upset me, or you should have known that would trigger me, or
Yeah.
how do you not know that's upsetting me? And they
Right.
don't want to talk about it. Then you've got a situation. And I think first of all, right, you may need to seek counseling yourself, right? To
Yeah, if
change
you
your
have some kind of
response.
trauma that you're responding, you're responding inside in a certain way, and you can't change that on your own, you need to seek help. It's very hard to change a trigger response from a trauma that you experienced however long ago. You're not going to change the way you respond to it until you really can figure out how to change the connection between the thought, the emotion, and where in your body it happens. That's the thing. So there's plenty of you have to have a really good trauma therapist who uses like a neurological approach to trauma with real concrete
And that's if you're the
strategies.
one that experienced trauma. What if you're with somebody in a committed relationship?
Right.
They have a trauma response or appears to have a trauma response, because you may not know.
Right.
But they consistently shut down, don't want to talk about
Mm-hmm.
their feelings, don't want to talk about their triggers. What do you do if you're the one in that relationship with that person?
Well, I mean, they don't. If you try to talk about it and they shut you down, I would encourage that person to seek help. Like you don't want to talk about it to me, but you need to talk about this because it's affecting our relationship. It's affecting the way you live your life, and maybe they've adapted behaviors that are unhealthy, which a lot of times that does happen.
Yeah.
People try to self-medicate. So, you have to be careful. And if you really care about that person, you don't want to enable them. You want to make sure they get some help.
Right. And none of us should be a punching bag for somebody else's trigger response.
No, absolutely not. I mean, somebody could be, it doesn't mean you could sit there and take the punches or whatever they dish out. No, that's not, you don't need to do that.
And these strategies, the awareness, right, will help you to have a conscious response to your partner, but they may not be on the same level you are with the conscious response.
Yeah.
Now you can use these strategies like tell me why this is so triggering for you to see if you can move them to a more conscious response, but there's no guarantee of that.
Yeah, I mean, I created this like response, a set of 5 responses or steps that you can take. And I call it the compassionate validation response. I'm sure that term was coined by somebody else. I just don't know who.
Yeah.
But it's compassionate validation, meaning, when someone's talking to you about something and you're it's a challenging conversation, you could ask like, this sounds like it's hard for you to talk about. You could just put it out there. This seems like it's really hard for you to talk about, but I'm glad we're talking about it. I'm glad you're talking about
so
this
then you're
to
showing
me.
openness to
Right.
and willingness to walk through this.
I'm really glad you're talking about to me about this. And then I believe you. Everybody needs to know that you're believed. They're believed. That will gain trust and truly be sincere. I mean, believe them. If you don't believe them,
Right.
don't say it.
Right.
But
We're not saying to lie to your partner
Right.
or to make stuff up, make people feel better. It's not
But I
what this
believe
about.
he was critical. The other person needs to know that they're
Mm-hmm.
believed. And then tell me more. I believe you. Tell me more. And then just listen.
Yeah.
Actively listen. And the less said, the better. Typically, when somebody's emotionally upset, I know I have a meltdown protocol I created for my kids on the autism spectrum, the little ones. And that's a big thing. The less words you say, the better. A lot of parents try to talk
Yeah.
to their child or try to teach them, if you did this or you didn't do that, this wouldn't be happening. You wouldn't be upset.
Yeah, nothing what we said today is about giving advice to your partner, right?
No.
It's a curiosity place.
Right.
It's not an advice mindset.
Right. And can you imagine crying hysterically, having a meltdown, someone trying to tell you, well, if you didn't do this, if you just did this when you walked in the door, you wouldn't be upset.
Right.
That's not helpful. That's not helpful. I mean,
Yeah. Maybe if you got up earlier, you wouldn't
Right.
be in such a rush to get out the door and constantly misplacing your keys.
right. And you wouldn't be having a meltdown about whatever now. I mean, first of all, if the child's small, they don't have the skills to regulate their emotions. So they're not taking anything
Right.
anything you're saying in.
But adults will shut down too
Yeah.
for those reasons as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
Like a lot of adults don't have skills either. But
So I think we've covered a lot of ground.
Yeah.
Again, just to back up, we want to make sure that you're aware of the external event that is causing a reaction. You want to be aware of your physical reaction, your emotional reaction, and you want to be aware of how you're responding. I think one of the other things we want to talk about before we wrapped up is things that you can just do every single day
Right.
To support more mindful and conscious responses and how important this is too.
yeah. So 4 things you can do every day: exercise, movement daily, any movement. I like to work out. I do all different kinds of workouts, but weights are my favorite right now. So exercise or movement daily, meditation or prayer, whatever works for you.
Yep.
Meditation typically helps you become more aware of what's going on inside your body, but so do those
And
small
your thoughts. Aware of
your thoughts, right, and just let them float by or bring them back or whatever.
And if you've never meditated before, if anybody ever told you meditation is about emptying your mind, emptying your thoughts, that is not, because it's completely not true.
Just being an observer of your thoughts.
You can't stop your thoughts.
Right. They're going to be there. Just observe them kind of from a distance. Oh, interesting.
The curiosity
Right.
mindset,
The curiosity. It's an interesting thought I just had, instead
right.
of labeling it anything else.
Right.
Just, okay, that's a thought. Oh, there's a thought. Oh, there's a thought.
That's the practice.
And then just bring yourself back to the breath, right?
Yep.
And let's see, journal and reflection. So I like to journal. I meditate and I try to practice the awareness throughout my day, like just small, silly routines like the tea I'm drinking and just the way my feet feel on the floor and stuff like that. But yeah, journal and reflection. Journaling is very powerful and it could help take the emotions from the inside and put it out on paper. It's very cathartic.
Yeah.
So you can reflect that way. And then
So one thing, that is the way to get your thoughts
out of your
is
head
on paper.
On paper.
Right? Yeah.
It's important. I'm working with a child right now and I introduced the idea of journaling and she was so excited. She's like, I can do that? And I
great
remember,
practice.
yeah, it's a beautiful thing. She's little, she's 9 and she's so excited to be able to have a journal that no one else can read. So she could write all of her feelings. She has a lot of big feelings. And so I'm really excited that she's able to do that. Like I was able to help her in that way.
Yeah.
And then breathing exercises. Just breathe, count. You could do box breathing, which is 4 in, hold for 4, 4 out. You can do 4 in, hold for 2, 6 out. You could do the exaggerated sigh where you breathe in, fill up your lungs as much as you can, and then exhale through your mouth.
I think a good idea would be for when we throw this up on YouTube to put
The different kind of
links
breathing.
to how to do this, right? Because a lot of it, if you're just listening to us and
James Nestor wrote a great book about breath. I read it.
Let's put some links in there for that.
Yeah.
So I think this has been great. This is one of the favorite shows that I've done with you because I think if you can really, really practice, and you're not going to get it right every time. It's just a continual practice of awareness and consciousness. And
Right. And I just want to, because I love what you wrote here. I love that you wrote, in essence, solve for. This is just, so what is happening outside of me What is happening within me? What is the feeling, emotion I'm experiencing right now? What is the best response? None, calm, not reacting from emotion. Who's driving your car? So are your emotions driving away with you in the back seat, or are you driving your car and your emotions
Right.
are in the back
And
seat?
very clear, because we're not saying not to feel. Allow
Oh, yeah.
whatever comes up. Allow yourself to feel that. But what we're talking about is not being driven by those
Right.
feelings.
Not letting your behavior be driven by your emotions.
That's where danger occurs for everybody.
Yeah, yeah.
right?
Be recognizing it's there, and recognizing that you have a choice about the way you respond and what your behavior is from that emotion. There you go.
Stay in control.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Okay.
Thank you for watching.
Thank you.
See you next time.
Okay.